And speaking of which, you went straight to the news conference to hear from co-defensive coordinator Steve Clinkscale and also Jess Minter taking over for Mike McDonald. We have speculated, and I'm sure you have more so on your podcast over the last few months, what this defense is going to look like, what the possible changes could be with Mike McDonald moving him back to the NFL. What did you gain from this news conference?
I'd say the biggest thing is that they're calling this year 2 of this defense. So I don't think there will be many changes in terms of schemes. I'm sure that Jesse Minter coming in from Vanderbilt will, put his own spin on things. But I think that we talked about it before on this show, and I know in our podcast too. I think they did not want to have 3 defenses in 3 years for a lot of these players, coming from Don Brown to Mike McDonald to now Jesse Minter. So they're calling this year 2. They're keeping it the same scheme. Jesse Minter does have a lot of ties to the Baltimore Ravens, like Mike McDonald does. So they've worked together. They know that same scheme. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that it will be consistent from last year to this year in terms of how the defense looks. The big thing that they talked about was, how do you replace an Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo? You're not going to have guys like that on the edge. They do have Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw that will do pretty well. But how do you make your scheme fit now to – you aren't going to have guys that are getting 3 sacks a game or 2 sacks a game or something like that and getting pressure all day. They definitely have a focus on the back end of that defense. They want their guys to cover for longer. Steve Clinkscale mentioned that he had talked to his guys a lot, where if they just give Aiden 1 more second or half a second more, then Aiden's getting to the quarterback. And so they're focused on, how do we extend that play for another half a second or second and let our guys up front get to the QB and disrupt things.